welcome back to episode 4. We have an attorney, Chris Burns, and then the one and only Polini.
And I.
So, today we have some questions we got, and we're gonna have Chris talk about family attorney, family at law, and give us some advice. So, Eni, do you have any questions, anything?
Yeah, well, exactly. Chris, what do you do exactly in terms of family law? Are you like an attorney for it's not like a trial case, so it's not like a defendant, if you will, but are you more like on the guys' team or the girls' team, or how does that actually work? Or how do you determine who do you represent, if you will?
It just depends on who retains me.
Okay.
It's in the family division handles all parenting, divorces, parenting petitions, custody, child support, all those good things.
Gotcha.
And then criminal cases are in the district court, so it's a
okay.
different aspect. So it just depends. There's no benefit to filing first, second, man, woman. You're a parent in a case, is essentially what it comes down to.
Gotcha. Okay. And have you worked more with females and or males? And do you think cases differ from when you get a male versus a female?
Under the statutes, your gender doesn't play a role. So theoretically, you're treated the same.
Just a number.
Just a
Well, jeez. All right. Well, I appreciate my equalness, I guess.
in theory. But
Yeah.
When it comes to child support, if you're trying to maintain a 50-50 schedule and pay child support, it's kind of different if the court enters 100% child support obligation. So
Gotcha.
It's tough to pay 100% while still being a parent half the time.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not easy.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate. As I don't know if Modern told you, I was lucky enough where I did not have to go through the court system, if you will. So I was able to work out a great relationship with my mother of my kids. But obviously, my co-star has a little bit of a different journey, which I'm glad you're able to offer any advice to him. It's greatly appreciated.
So I'm familiar with his case. So did you come to an agreement?
Yeah, before we went to and filed together, we just sat down and, kind of apologized and then, worked it out whether, hey, if we're going to go, if the divorce you want to go through, let's just do it, as best we can, because obviously it's not just about us anymore. It's about,
Because you were married as well.
I was married at the time. Yeah, married, 3 kids. And then we filed together, I think, a joint petition. And then about like a month or 2 later, we had a, what do you call it? Like, not a seminar, but like just a gathering,
After you file, anybody that files, the first thing they go to is called a first appearance.
Yes, thank you.
Where everybody that's filed goes there. You're not individually called up for a hearing. The judge takes the bench and explains the process to you and what to expect. Usually, if it's a typical case, you would go from there to mediation. You get a mediation date for the first appearance. That's
Gotcha.
sort of the typical track of a divorce case here in New Hampshire, or a parenting case as well.
Yeah. They the judge asked if we wanted to file, and we filed, and we were just like, hey, we're pretty good friends, and they were kind of, I think they're a little shocked because there was no, like child support request, there was no arguing or fighting or anything like that, and basically I was able to get divorced in, unfortunately anyway, I don't know, 3 months, 4 months, something like that. But obviously, I know there's probably other cases that.
Now, is that a fast
longer.
divorce, 3-4 months, compared to other cases?
I mean, comparatively speaking, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Some cases drag on for years. Some cases never end. The kids just hit 18 and they age out.
Damn.
Whoa, what? Hold on, what? How's that even possible?
Well, you would get divorced
Yeah.
before the kids hit the age of 18 if they're younger. But you get divorced, and then some parents never stop arguing. So there's post-divorce issues, adjustments to child support, a modification of the parenting plan. Some parents will always find something to argue about. They go back to court, the case just drags on, the kids hit 18, and then the court loses jurisdiction.
Oh, wow.
Fortunately, that didn't happen to you.
Yeah.
You were in and out.
Yeah. I'll take it. You know.
Theoretically, you don't even have to go to mediation. You could have gone to a mediator or an attorney and just come up with the agreement, did the paperwork, submit the paperwork to the court for approval. The court would approve it, send it back. You waive your right to attend a hearing. And it's just a matter of mailing it in. The court signs it, mails it back to you, and you're divorced.
Gotcha. Okay. Kind of like, so if when do you, I guess, represent? Like, let's say they filed joint. Like, where do you come into play? As in, do you wait for one of the applicants to come to you, and or do you just get a case from them, and then you represent like the team?
So I could be involved at any point, and I could do a number of different things in the case. But the thing to keep in mind is I can only do one thing in the case. So if you guys come to me with a joint petition and say, we have an agreement, we want you to help us write it, I'm kind of helping both of you. Just put your agreement on paper.
Okay.
And if you have an agreement, great. But at some point, and this happens a lot, people don't want to fight when they get divorced. They like the idea of having an agreement, but they don't really have the specifics of the agreement. So they go to the attorney's office and say, we want to have an agreement, we want to get divorced, we don't want to argue in court. And then I get out the paperwork and say, well, have you thought about this? And then when you get into the weeds, then they don't agree. So sometimes it falls apart. They like the idea of having an agreement, but they don't actually have the agreement yet. And then it comes up that they have something they don't agree on. You end up in court, and then I'm conflicted out because I essentially try to help both of you.
Right, so you can't just help one in the court case?
Well, I can only do one thing. So
Right.
I can sort of be a facilitator and help you guys come up with an agreement.
Yeah.
Or I can say, like, if you came in and said...
And ask for your help.
Right.
Yeah.
I would help you and make it clear to the other side, here's what we're proposing. If you agree, great. But if there's no agreement, I represent Dan.
Right.
I don't want you to think I'm helping both of you. So just as long as it's clear, I can only wear one hat in the case.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's totally understandable. How long have you been doing
Yeah, give us a little backstory.
family law, is it? Or family court?
Yeah, family law.
Okay.
I do a little bit of everything. A lot of it is family law. I do a lot of court-appointed work and abuse and neglect cases as well. But I've been practicing law for nearly 20 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Family law for the majority of that time. Almost all that time in some aspect doing family law. I also do some bankruptcy, some criminal, some personal injury as well. But probably 70% of what I do is family law related.
What's your favorite?
Probably bankruptcy.
Yeah. Just because it gets crazy, or?
Well, like in your case, you were going from an intact family. You were probably both working.
Yep.
And you had one household.
Yeah.
Now, when you separate, you've got to maintain two households.
Yeah.
So your expenses just doubled.
Yeah.
And you went from having two incomes in that household
To
now
just one.
income.
Yep.
So your assets got cut in half. And on top of that, best case scenario is you're going to see your kids half the time.
Yeah.
So even best case scenario, it's tough to call up somebody and say, these are the circumstances, and that's a good outcome. They don't want to hear that. It doesn't feel like that's a good outcome. As opposed to a bankruptcy case where you can call up your client and say, all those credit cards you ran up, you don't have to pay them back.
You're all set.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah. Nice. So yeah, just giving better news to the client, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I guess in family law, I mean, there's probably to the client, there's like no good news
Right.
from their
Well, there could be,
perspective. You know
but-
what I mean? Because obviously, it's like I want my kids. I'd rather not pay any child support,
Right.
and I'd rather just everything get dismissed and go about your way. But obviously, it doesn't work necessarily that way.
Right. It's hard to put a spin on some of the inevitable changes that people are going to go through.
Yeah. So do you want to get in? Maybe we'll get into some questions that we have written down from some of the people that
Oh yeah, absolutely.
left us some.
All right, so we got the first question is what age can my child decide where they want to live?
So a lot of people ask me this question. Most people think that there's some magic age where a kid gets to say, I want to live with mom or dad. And that's...
I'm assuming 18 or
Well,
16,
at that
or,
point, you're an adult. You're
or
out of the
depending on
house.
what state you live in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at 18, the court loses jurisdiction and the kids can do whatever they want. But while they're still minors, there's no age in the statutes that allows a child to say, I want to live here as opposed to there.
It's just an agreement with the parents, if they have one.
Well, there's a mature minor statute where if a child is of sufficient maturity,
Yeah.
the court can take their considerations into account.
Yeah.
But even under the statute, if the court finds a child a mature minor, the court doesn't have to take it into account.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But typically, no, I said there was no magic age, but I'm going to give you an age.
Okay.
Usually that comes into play about 14 or older. The court is a lot more receptive to finding a child a mature minor.
Okay.
But like no magic age, really.
All right. The next question we have is, how is child support determined?
So there is a formula, and every state uses a child support formula. It's just plugging in the numbers, and the formula gives you an amount. You put in your income, the other party's income, the number of kids, or certain deductions you can take, like child support, medical expenses, and then you run the calculation, and it gives you a number. And there's a presumption that that number's accurate. Now, that's the starting point. You don't necessarily end with that number. You can deviate from the number you get under the calculation, but the burden's on you if you want to deviate from it. And you can deviate upwards or downwards under certain circumstances, and there's a statute for both of those.
Oh, well, side question: obviously I don't have to pay child support, but is child support if either spouses don't ask for child support, then there doesn't have to be one? Or can the court say like there has to be some?
Yes, because the way the court looks at it is it's not your money and it's not the other parent's money. It's the kid's money. So even if you guys agree that no one's going to pay child support, the court still needs to approve it. And you've got to give a reason why there's no child support. And the court's pretty receptive.
I did not know that.
The court's pretty receptive to your agreement, but it doesn't have to approve it.
So I have a question, like what happens with, I'm going to throw my case in there. We went to court months later, and then the judge said, you have to pay back child support from when she filed it. Even though we never went to court, I still had to make up those because she filed.
Was that brought up at any other time during
she
it?
She just filed for it, and then when we got to court for the first time, he said, well, since she filed back then, you have to make up those back payments. How does that work? Or like what's the reason for that?
The date that child support begins is the date that the party paying it received notice. So in your case, she could go back to the date that you filed. Right.
Not for child support.
Well, you
I
the
filed for, yes. Yeah.
petition.
Yeah.
And in your petition, you didn't check off the child support box.
Right.
So she either cross-petitioned or filed a motion for child support, and the date she filed her request is the date the court can go back to.
Because even if I had checked off child support, they would have. So what happens if, since I'm the one paying, since I checked off that box, would I have to make up those past dates? Even if I made more, you know what I mean? Even though I filed for it, does that happen? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You just put whoever's paying on notice on that date.
Yeah.
And if you end up paying,
Yeah. Then you have to make.
you
Wow.
just checked off the wrong box.
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question we have is, how much does it cost for an attorney, roughly?
So it depends. Like your case, if you came into an attorney's office with an agreement, personally, I would charge you a flat fee. I wouldn't charge you an hourly rate. Just do paperwork. You waive your appearance at a hearing, and it's just a matter of sending the paperwork. If there's a contested issue, then it becomes an hourly case,
Oh, gotcha.
and you got to come up with a retainer from which the hourly is subtracted,
Hmm.
and then going forward, you might have monthly bills after the retainer is depleted.
Gotcha. It's almost like an account that you fill up, and then once it's used up, the customer
Now,
will put up
right,
more.
then you got to re-up that
Okay.
account. I have a question from our past episode with Skip. He said it's, he wishes he got an attorney. He couldn't afford one because he had to pay all these things. Do you advise people they should get an attorney, try to scrape up the money if they don't have it? What do you think, or what?
So it's always helpful to have an attorney
Yeah.
look it over, because theoretically the attorney should actually save you money.
Yeah.
So if you go to an attorney who's trying to help you, it will streamline the process. You'll get in and out faster.
Yeah.
Now, again, that's in theory.
Of
But
course.
the reality is, if you find somebody with money who has a lot to complain about, you can find an attorney who will complain just as much as the other parent will.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how often a parent will find an attorney that matches their perspective on everything.
Yeah.
If your co-parent is reasonable, they'll probably have a reasonable attorney.
Mm-hmm.
If they're unreasonable, you probably find an attorney who does a lot of complaining.
Yeah.
It's amazing, after 20 years, I can probably look at a petition and tell you
Know what's going to
long-
play out.
Yeah.
how long your case is going to take by
Wow.
the attorney's signature on it,
Wow.
which is unfortunate, but
Right.
that's kind of the reality.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. And then one of our last questions is, what happens if you don't pay child support?
So it depends. I'm assuming that question is about if you're required to pay child support and you don't follow the child support obligation. So if that's the case, then at some point, well, even if you don't pay it, the account is going to accrue. So every month that you miss, that amount's
Just
going to get
building,
larger.
yeah.
Right. So at some point, if the person who's supposed to be receiving the child support files a motion with the court and lets the court know that you're not paying, the court could find you in contempt, force you to pay it, including the back child support that you didn't pay. And at some point,
Jeez.
at some point, the other parent could file a show cause request, which is a hearing where the court wants to know, why should we not put you in jail?
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, the court can put you in jail, and the amount of bail to get out would be equal to the back child support.
See, I don't even. So they're doing that so you will pay it.
It's one of the remedies. It's
Yeah.
not very common that happens.
Well, if you pay the bail, does the bail go to the
Yes.
woman? Oh, okay.
You forfeit the bail, and it gets sent to the other
Yeah.
side.
Because I was like, what's the point in putting someone in jail? Because then
They
now
don't
they're
have any
definitely not
money.
making it. Right.
Right. That's why it's not very common.
Right. Okay.
A more common outcome would be that the court holds you in contempt and they make you pay the other side's attorney's fees. Or
Oh,
something
okay.
like that.
Yeah.
But at the far end of the spectrum is potential jail time.
Jesus.
That's pretty serious.
Rough.
I ain't playing you ain't playing no games. So I mean, 20 years of basically doing this, you've probably seen all types of, scenarios, if you will. Is there? I'm not saying there's a common theme, but as like a father, at least for myself, Modern, a lot of our friends, there's always like a what's the word? A perceived bias to the male in terms of equal platform, obviously child support. Like, are these? I'm not saying you feel that way, but do you tend to get a lot of clients, at least male clients, come in and try to work with their spouse, or do you think you get a lot of male clients that really kind of just bat heads because obviously it's not getting, they're not getting their way, if you will?
So every case is different, so it kind of just depends on the dad themselves. The more reasonable the dad, the more reasonable the case, the easier it's going to be, the less it's going to cost. From the perspective of the statutes, there's a presumption that a 50-50 schedule or roughly equal time with the children is in their best interest. So again, that's the starting point for the court, and then they don't necessarily stay there. There's going to be a hearing, probably multiple hearings, as to what a final plan is going to look like. But that's sort of the starting point. And if you want to deviate from that roughly equal parenting time, then the burden's on you.
Gotcha. It seems like a lot of the starting point is a pretty 50-50, or at least an even playing field, and then maybe the spouses or non-spouses make it more difficult.
Yeah, I definitely think they make it more difficult than it needs to be, for sure. But again, you have feelings, emotions, everyone's angry. So it's...
Does that weigh on you? Like, because there's a lot of probably pain, hurt, frustration, couples not communicating or being spiteful or using the kids and all these other crazy variables. I mean, is that kind of like, do you ever get like another one? Like, why can't you guys just,
Sometimes, when I first started practicing, an older attorney, I just got killed. I was in court. My client wasn't honest with me. We got annihilated.
Oh, geez.
Oh, that's another thing, right? If they're not honest with you, you're
up there looking.
Right. I mean, now after 20 years, when somebody comes in and tells me how bad the other side is, I say, okay, I got it.
What about you?
Yeah.
What about you?
What are they going to say about you when they're standing in front of the judge? And we just got killed at this hearing. And then another attorney came up to me. I didn't even know who he was. He just said, hey, listen, kid, you do what you could. Sometimes when the facts are on your side, bang on the facts. If not, just bang on the table.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of attorneys and a lot of parents that just bang on the table because emotions are involved. And unfortunately, the technical rules of evidence don't apply in the family court. So you do have those emotions that come into the hearings. Now, hopefully the judge will filter that out. But hearsay and all the other stuff that wouldn't make its way into a superior court case can come into the family division.
Now, do you have, is your, job, as an attorney's job description to help the client, I'm not saying, is your job to help them win? Because obviously if there's a winner, that means they're a loser. Not they're a loser, but there is a loser in terms of someone winning. So is it more job you're trying to mediate to create the peace for the kids, or are you just representing whatever side or whatever variables you have to hopefully get a resolution?
So whenever I meet with somebody, new client comes in talking about their case, that was a free consultation, talk to them, and at the end, the last question I typically ask them is, what are your objectives? Tell me what you want to do, and I'll tell you if that's realistic under these circumstances.
Gotcha.
So there's sort of hopefully that reality check at the beginning. Because if you're coming to me and you're telling me, I want to give you a retainer to make the other parent go away so they never have visitation, and I just want to get a check from them every month.
That's pretty strong.
I'm going to tell you that's not realistic.
Gotcha.
So if that's what you want to do, I'm not your guy.
Okay.
Like, based on what you told me, here's sort of what I see happening in your case. And if you want me to help you do that, great. Otherwise, tell me what other information you have that you haven't told me that might change my perspective on things. So when they come in, I kind of have the conversation with them that they get to choose the goals.
Okay.
And I'm kind of the driver of the car. I help you figure out how to get to that goal. So let's pick some realistic goals so we don't run off the road halfway down.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to, I think, throw it on live because I feel like we've answered some good questions that people might want to hear. But
okay.
yeah, I'm going to throw it on the live, and then we can
answer them again too,
Yeah.